Hey guys, Steve here. Today we're going to look at the Tier 6 French tech tree battleship Lyon. We got Bob Jojo on the screen there. That's the build I run on pretty much all the French battleships, I believe. Lyon, highest damage per minute battleship, at least AP damage per minute battleship at Tier 6 by a wide margin. I got just shy of 350,000 potential damage per minute. You know, that's if every gun's going off, it's landing citadels. Not a likely scenario, but that's one metric you can use to measure ships' offensive output. Next highest on my build is King George V, about 50,000 damage per minute less. So this thing, a lot of tubes. You got 16 guns. Those tubes shoot the deadly ordnance downrange and blow things up. We're going to see a little bit of that in this match. It's not a barn burner of a game in terms of damage, but pretty well played. The focus on this game, if you want to take away anything, we're going to be trying to minimize how many ships can just shoot at us at any point in time. If it's a 1v1 against pretty much any ship on the enemy team, I'm not really that worried. The problem with the Lyon, it's not the sturdiest ship known to man, so if you start getting focused or you're getting shot from a lot of different angles, you can start to get knocked around pretty quick. So we're going to be focusing on that. Spawn Salt the Sea here. Usually these days, both teams overload the western side of the map. Usually you'll see anywhere from 0 to 3 ships per team come over to this eastern side, which usually makes it easier to cap. But because we spawn over here, we're going to position over here, support that Mayhem that's moving into sea, make sure you can capture it. Then we'll go over, look for crossfire positions on the expected overload on the western side of the map. So to start with, we sail a little wide. That allows us to turn in here. Now we're able to pull forward, utilize that cover. That's going to cut down on how many ships can shoot at us. Icarus pops up. The Mayhem's shooting a little bit at him. We go ahead and blast him there, and woo, about 2/3 of his health gone with that salvo, and that's soul crushing for the Icarus. He's going to go down. That's going to leave the Mayhem, who's on the cap, a very easy time for capping that. Red team didn't really send any support ships over that Icarus. Once he's gone, we should have no problems capping C. The only problem that we do run into is the Mayhem not interested in winning the game. He gets off the cap, he goes, kills himself trying to torp a battleship, and loads in the next round. Pensacola got stuck there. We blasted him once when he was backing up. Now he pulled around, turned out, and we got half the salvo in there, and he gone! And that is devastating strike against the Pensacola there. This thing will absolutely shred any cruiser that I can see if you get them broadside. Lower caliber battleship guns on the Lyon, so once in a while you can have some penetration issues against certain battleships, but cruisers, very dangerous. You do not want to be broadside to the Lyon in your cruiser. You'll note in addition to the Mayhem, we do have 2 other ships that are pretty close to that sea cap, pointing at it. Just go ahead and get on that cap, guys. You know, even if you're not traditionally, you're not a destroyer, you don't feel like it's your main role to cap, if you got a clear shot at it, go ahead and take it. You can see now our team on the west clustered into a black hole formation down south, but where our position is here, basically right in the center of the map, all those red ships that potentially wanted to go down there and duel those guys, brawl them or whatever, we had crossfires on them, so we'd kind of turn the guys now around. I believe maybe he just didn't want to push into the whole fleet down there, whatever his decision making was. Doesn't matter. We were a major threat to the guy. We would have gotten 2 salvos off, most likely at a square broadside. That's going to be a lot of damage. You know, I think probably 20, 25,000 for your average salvos combined on that guy. So he was going to get punished. He turns around, and now our team's kind of piling on him here. He's going to have a tough time. The problem what we have with our formation over here is because everyone's clumped up so much, once these ships drop line of sight from one of those ships, they kind of drop line of sight from all of them. So we're going to see some intermittent spotting problems here. You see I'm maintaining my position to this island to the right of me. I don't want to get too far forward where Ganai's now that cruiser behind the cliff way over by B, the cruiser to the right of the screen, other battleships to the north. I don't want all these ships to have potential shots at me, because once they start noticing those shots, like I said earlier, we can get wrecked pretty quickly. So that's why we're kind of holding on to here. You got to be very careful when you're playing this close to islands with destroyer threats in the water. You can see we've lost both of our destroyers at this point in time. They still have 2 of 3 on their team. So distinct advantage there. But if we're this close, and especially if we're sitting still like this, where it's going to be tough for us to react to any sudden encroachment on our position by a sneaky destroyer. That's something you got to keep an eye on. So we got to keep an eye on the map. You see one destroyer currently spotted way on the western edge, the white line border of the map. He's dueling a cruiser. Somehow I think he's actually going to kill him. Then the other destroyer is kind of in the thick of things over there in between B and C. So got to keep an eye on the map, got to keep an eye on roughly where you think those guys are. If you think they're homing in on you, or even if you think they have a pretty good chance to home in on you, you got to start maybe responding, repositioning. Dallas was pushing forward. I don't know if he didn't realize I was here or not. Very dangerous. He kind of angles away from us. But Dallas, anytime you got 16 battleship guns firing at you at relatively close range, this is kind of a medium range shot at worst. That's a potentially dangerous situation. We kind of waited for him to turn out there. That's a really good angle. We wanted him to kind of be at a 45-degree angle away from us, potentially cutting down on those overpens. Only got about 5 overpens on him, though. Not the end of the world. Still decent damage, roughly 5k damage on him. So he's not going to withstand a lot of those salvos, but it wasn't quite the one-shot glory that we were hoping for there. We were down a couple ships earlier. We've narrowed that down to 1. Score-wise, though, the gap continues to widen. They do have the 2-to-1 cap advantage, and they're going to wind up pressuring C as the game goes on. So what happens in domination mode, if the score gets too lopsided, then the team who's down on score, their options to win the game dwindle, and they basically force themselves to kill all the enemy ships. That can be difficult if the enemy team has more HP than you do, or if the time is running out and you're not going to have enough time to finish off the red fleet. So it's always sloppy domination mode play to just ignore the caps. It really makes the game a lot harder for you, and your win rate goes down precipitously. So Dallas there, we got a shot at him. Unfortunately, he kind of squirted right through there. Aimed just a little bit behind him, but he got away there. We want to get rid of these cruisers. Both Dallases are low health. We got the teammate on our left-hand side of the screen there shooting this Dallas, so he's going to go down. But I wanted to get that other one down. If you can kill both of those ships, that cuts down their damage per minute as a team dramatically. Those ships pump out a lot of firepower, and they do it, they can be quite annoying, especially with the composition like we got now, where it's a lot of battleships and a cruiser. If they're using those destroyers to spot and those cruisers are able to position behind the islands, rain down those golden showers, then you're in trouble. Unfortunately, he stops. He lives to fight another day, and so we're kind of forced to take on this King George. He's really well angled against us, so we're not likely to get much damage, if any. But we are going to take a shot there, try and knock out the turret. Unfortunately, Dev struck one of our teammates right before we could get that shot off, so maybe that would have prevented the Dev strike, maybe not. But unfortunate, we were kind of going back and forth who to shoot at, just because we wanted to kill the Dallas, but the King George, due to our hesitancy, got him there. There's the Farragut. He looks fairly low, but we do need to keep an eye on him. Farraguts aren't going to have a great time torping us at range, but if we're moving into them, that's when they could potentially do some damage. Not a lot of health on that ship, so a suicide torp run could be problematic, but you got to keep an eye on them, because that's what a lot of players, especially people playing destroyers and low-tier destroyers and failed platoons, that's probably their modus operandi, is just rush battleships, torp them, see what happens. I should probably focus on the Farragut there. There he does pop around. Secondary's going off. It'd be nice if they hit him. King George is taken out, so we're going to be able to get a shot here. I do need to angle towards this guy. Of course, that's going to cut down the potential firepower we can send up, but at this range, we're not likely to really miss this guy. So the front turret, even if that's the only one we get the shot off on, that's good enough to do. We'd rather dodge those torps. So you got to expect those torps whenever the destroyer kind of pops up close range to you like that. Just turn into him, slow down, give him 1 second to launch the torps, before you start making the evasive maneuvers. But assume they're in the water, respond accordingly, and, all we needed was the one shot there. So now you can see we've clawed it back. Score-wise, we're still down, but we're on B. We got the other guys going on to C. So that's going to stop their accrual of points. While we're on those caps, we're both going to be generating points at the same time, both teams. And then once we actually flip these, then that gap will narrow. But you can see, it's unfortunate when you have much more weight on your side. The battleships are worth more than the destroyer. So we should have a pretty decent lead in terms of score if our team was trying to capture the caps at all. Anyway, a little confused there. One of the problems with using the national voiceovers is when they tell you where the torps are coming from, you don't always know, so little slow to respond there. Luckily, we didn't take a flood because we do have a permanent fire stuck right now. And flood on top of that could have been really potentially problematic. I mean, number one, it'll slow you down. He did have a follow-up salvo here, which we were already kind of dodging before we even saw it. But if we were flooded, we'd be going much slower. That probably would have been a kill shot there. So a little bit of luck there. Wouldn't have been as sloppy looking had we known where those torps were coming from, you know, a second or two earlier, but whatever. We lived to fight another day, and now, classic destroyer mistake. I'm in the smoke, I'm safe, right? The guy can't see me. He's going to blind fire one more salvo of torps, hoping that I'm in the lane. I'm assuming that's what he's going to do, so that's why I'm kind of turning to the right here, changing the angle that I'm approaching so that where he thinks I'm coming from is not where I actually am. And those torps right there, they might even be widespreads. I won't give them the Price is Right sound right now, but, you know, ineffective. And this guy should be running the heck away. You know, he can get far enough away from me so when the smoke dissipates, I won't spot him. Then he can get some more salvos off. The game is still in play here, even though he's going to have a tough time. But he's sitting still. You know what that means. Full health to no health. Akatsuki to end the game. He gone! Lyon, probably one of the more fun battleships to play in the game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave below. I do love to hear from you guys. And we'll see you all later. Peace.